Welcome everybody that has joined this specific welcome to ERP Suites AI Week, and excited to have this event. So, no, excited to have everyone here. Thanks for joining today's uh, in this week's AI Week. We have a packed agenda this week with a variety of different tracks, different keynotes, and we have a special guest, Julie Holmes, who is a we are co-workers way back in the day in JD Edwards, where we worked closely here in Denver. And since then, Julie has, broadened her horizons and expanded and grown so much. She is a leader in the innovation and AI space around the world, talking with customers about AI and technology that can drive business. She's engaged in multiple ventures companies that she has formed. She has a wonderful background, and we are so happy to have you here today, Julie, to kick off our AI week. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Manuel. It's a delight to be here, and I'm so excited. As Manuel said, JD Edwards is my background, right? So almost 20 years I spent working in the JD Edwards space, doing everything from from training to product management. I was the product manager for E1 Financials for years, and as well as working as a partner in analytics. And one thing was consistently true: I loved our JD Edwards customers, and I'm just thrilled that there are so many of you on here today. And I'm delighted to see all the different places where we're coming from: Argentina, Ecuador, Carolina, Panama. I'm going to give a special shout out, of course, to Nebraska, because that's where I'm from. And I was just in Nebraska on Sunday. So I think we need to talk about the weather that we had over the weekend, which was terrible and cold. But other than that, of course, Omaha, my old stomping ground. So I thought what I would do today is kind of put together something a little special for you all. As Manuel said, I do get to travel all over the world, and I'm really lucky, I think, to be able to do the work that I do. I started my own company, probably 10 years ago now. And it's been a really great adventure to be able to kind of help people embrace technology, particularly AI, as I think for many people, it can feel a little bit overwhelming. As I travel around the world, and I've spoken on 3 continents this year alone, and as I travel around the world and I speak about AI, I will tell you that I have found that there are really 3 types of people when it comes to AI. The first group of people are those that are super excited about AI. They are like all in, they can't wait. They're naming their robot butler. They are absolutely thrilled and delighted about the prospect and everything that AI brings to the party. And they are our AI enthusiasts. And there's another group of people, and that other group of people, they are the ones who feel a little overwhelmed, a little uncomfortable. They're not sure how AI fits into the world. And so they are what we call our AI reluctance. And then there's a third group of people. And that third group of people, I think, are best represented by my next door neighbor, Ruby. Now, Ruby is amazing. She is the most delightful person you'd ever meet. She's the kind of person who brings you chicken soup when you're sick. She knows you're sick before you know you're sick. And I think the best way, maybe the best way to describe Ruby is she's one of those people that says, "Oh, bless your heart," and she really means it. So like she's that person, which is great. Now I was chatting with her not too long ago, and she said, "Oh, what have you been up to?" And I was saying, "Oh, you know what? I've been traveling around. I've been talking about AI. I meet with leaders and find out how they're using AI. I do research and I investigate, and we do surveys and analysis about how people are leveraging the technology, leveraging AI." And I went on and on and on. And Ruby put her hand on my arm after a few minutes and said, "Oh my gosh, Julie, that's just amazing. I just had no idea that you were so involved in artificial insemination." And I thought, "Oh, I didn't know that either, Ruby, but thanks. I appreciate that." And still to this day, the cul-de-sac thinks that I'm involved in veterinary sciences. So regardless of where you are on your journey with AI, whether you are an all in and you're an enthusiast and can't wait, whether you are reluctant and feeling overwhelmed, or whether you're just like AI, I'm pretty sure I can spell that. I've tried to kind of put some content together today that I think will be helpful and hopefully get you inspired and thinking in the right way about how this technology can help. So I'm going to share some slides here. And we're just going to share them all through the screen so that you can see everything pretty straightforward. So hopefully, Manuel, can I get a thumbs up that you're seeing my slides with me? Awesome. That's
Yes, I can.
fantastic. In fact, let me push myself over to the other side like that. There we go. So so when it comes to technology, a lot of people are sensing this level of angst about AI and about all the change and all the transformation. But I think it's a really good first thing to recognize that this isn't our first time at the rodeo. Like we have absolutely been down this path with technology before. And in fact, if I think back to, maybe when I was first dating my husband, and my husband and I have been married for just over 25 years now. And I can remember early in the days of dating, and we got on famously, and we still do get along quite famously. However, there was one area that was always cause for a bit of a debate or a little bit of a disagreement. And that was every Friday night. We would come home from work, and these were in the early days. And the first thing we would do is change our clothes and then hop straight in the car and go to the store. Now, we had to go to the store and we had to get there by a certain time in order to get just the right entertainment for our Friday evening. Now, you would think that this would be pretty straightforward. We were obviously very similar people. We were married, so you'd think we'd have a lot in common, but I promise that wasn't the case when it came to the store. We would get to the store and we would immediately have a disagreement about what direction we were going to go and what we were going to focus on. I would want to go left because I felt like we needed something creative and romantic and fun and lighthearted. He wanted to go right and head straight to the back wall so that he could get to something that blows up. Now, for those of you, let me give you a little bit of a hint what this looked like. On one particular Friday evening, my immediate thought was like, oh my gosh, what we need to do more than anything, what my very British husband needed to see was he really needed to see this movie on the left. Now, for those of you who are looking at that thinking, well, that guy looks really familiar. You're right. Anybody want to put into chat who's the guy on the left? See if you can get it. Who's the guy on the left? I will tell you that this was a moment where I thought I was going to give my British husband some real cultural education about the Midwest where I am from. Shout out to Nebraska. And of course, this person on the left was starring in Oklahoma, right? Which is this amazing musical rendition of settling the Great Plains of America, and down in Oklahoma where we would have, cows and calico print and singing and dancing and romance and love and horses and sometimes all at the same time. I mean, just an amazing adventure. And of course, what did we see as the star of this fiasco and wonderful show? Hugh Jackman. And I promise I wasn't after this for Hugh Jackman. Now, if you're looking at the picture on the other side and you don't recognize it, this was where my husband went, and this was the cause of the argument. Because when we look at this particular photo, might not recognize it, but let me zoom out and see if it makes a little more sense. So, don't know, does that look familiar to anybody? That's right. You guessed it. Blockbuster, the new release wall at the very back of Blockbuster. Now, for those of you that are sitting at home playing along, let me ask you this. When or where is Blockbuster today? And if you're thinking, well, it's still open, it is still open. There is still one Blockbuster remaining. That Blockbuster is located in Bend, Oregon. And so in Bend, Oregon, there's one Blockbuster remaining, but it's basically like a museum piece. You might go there and you might as well see, new release DVDs as well as seeing dinosaur fossils. That's how old it is. And for those of you who are too young to recognize this back wall, the things on this wall are called DVDs. We used to have to go out to get a DVD to bring it home to watch a movie. Now, I want you to imagine for a second that you're walking into Blockbuster to the new release section, and what you're desperately wanting is to see, the latest, greatest Men in Black, because this was the time that this was, the latest, greatest Men in Black movie. But instead, you got there and you couldn't watch it because everybody from ERP Suites was already watching that film because they have impeccable taste. However, wouldn't you be frustrated today if that was the case? And the interesting thing about the whole Blockbuster scenario isn't Blockbuster in and of itself, it's that they had a chance to purchase 49% of Netflix and didn't pursue it. They declined to purchase 49% of Netflix because they couldn't imagine a world where that kind of digital streaming would take precedence and would actually last and actually kind of take over the world of movies. And instead, they decided to double down on the systems, the processes, and the practices that they already had in place. Now, somebody is feeling a lot of regret about that decision and has certainly felt a lot of regret about that decision over the years. So, the question for you as you step into AI week here is whether or not you're eager to stay in the Blockbuster world or whether you want to go play in the Netflix space. So, what does your future hold? Are you embracing technology or are you kind of pushing it aside in hopes that maybe this will all just blow over and pass you by? So, as we think about all of that, I think it's not about necessarily, identifying every possible way that AI can transform your business or how you can get the most results and the best outcomes from AI. That also comes over time. But instead, to start off by just recognizing that AI is the very first step in transforming your business if you're not already there. And there's a lot of different forms that AI transformation can take. So I thought I'd start by sharing a little bit of the research that we've done. So we do what's called an AI readiness assessment with organizations. And this is more just a survey that we put out when we speak to groups around the world. And it helps us to kind of get a feel for where people are in the world when it comes to AI. Now, one of the first questions we like to ask is where are we with artificial intelligence? So let's just try this out. I'd love to see everybody participating in chat because there's a lot of interactivity in this particular session. So let's all dive in. So, in your chat, just quickly, let's answer this question. Do you think that AI will have a significant impact on your industry? Yes or no? So just quickly put into the chat, yes or no. Do you think AI will have a significant impact on your industry? And let's see where we get responses from. So go ahead and type that into chat. And I'm watching the chat on my other screen so I can make sure that I can answer any questions that come up as well. Perfect. So we're starting to see yes, 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 yes. There's obviously a little bit of a delay. It already has. That's very true. I agree with that. All right. It's clear everybody's kind of on board with this. All right. Here's what I'll tell you is that you are in very good company because we find in our AI readiness assessment that 98% of leaders indicate that AI will have a significant impact on their industry. One of my favorite questions I get from groups, particularly CEOs, is, well, who's the other 2%? And I would agree with that. It's hard to imagine a world where AI isn't having an impact. Now, there's another question, which is especially for those of you that are leaders, it's whether or not you think that you're in control of AI. Now, of course, there are different levels of AI and different ways that AI is implemented in organizations. I spend a lot of time talking about, generative AI technologies and that type of thing. But of course, there's also systematic AI or embedded AI technology platforms, which I know is going to be a big focus this week. And just to kind of give everybody perspective, one of the most interesting results I think that we get out of this AI readiness assessment is that 4 out of 5 leaders tell us that they either know or suspect that people are using unknown or unapproved AI tools for work. So let that just sink in. If you are an organization who is issuing what we call panic policies, meaning that, oh my gosh, AI is overwhelming, we don't know what to do with it. So our policy is going to be don't do anything, don't touch it, don't use it, don't do anything. If that's the policy you've got, I can tell you right now that that is not working for you because 4 out of 5 leaders know or suspect that people are using AI tools that they don't know anything about. Now, that doesn't mean that AI is out of control. It means that there's an opportunity from a leadership perspective to help people be very discerning users of AI. We can't rely on policies to control what people are going to do with AI. So instead, we have to inform and educate and honestly inspire people when it comes to AI so that we're guiding them in the right direction as leaders. And it's worth it. I promise it's worth it. In fact, a 2025 study came out and showed that for every dollar that people are investing, that organizations are investing in AI, they're seeing about a dollar 43 in increased revenue and cost savings. So the ROI is there. And it's just a matter of making sure that we are embracing it. Now, one of the things that I do on a day to day basis, as Manuel mentioned, is working with AI. But I do that by interviewing leaders and working with teams and understanding, in part, what it is that differentiates an organization that is really doing well with AI and those who are laggards or who might be struggling when it comes to AI. Now, what's really interesting to me is that our research shows that the organizations who are most successful when it comes to leveraging AI as a technology aren't always the biggest. They also aren't always the ones with the biggest budgets. They aren't always the ones who have historically been the most tech advanced. So when we started to kind of group together those responses and looking at who was most successful and what those successful projects and initiatives looked like, it turned out that there were actually 7 things or 7 elements that these AI empowered organizations do that make them more successful. And let me share those with you now. So, the first is that the leadership and the strategic teams are spending time understanding the potential of AI. So, they're actually looking at it and making sure that they can see all of the possible use cases for AI so that they can then go on to step 2, which is they prioritize. They are ruthless in their prioritization, making sure that they evaluate opportunities and pick just the right ones for their organizations, not the ones that necessarily get the most hype, but the ones that have the most opportunity for them specifically. Then they do something that I think is really special. They have an AI first mentality, which means that instead of looking at their existing processes and trying to just plug AI in to a piece or a part of that process, what they're actually doing is they're re-evaluating their processes to determine what it would look like if they had an AI first approach to it. So instead of saying, let's just plug AI in, they say, well, what if we just revamped this whole process, leveraging AI as a foundational element to it? And that can often transform the way they use this technology. They also reinforce AI related skills. So at this point, particularly when it comes to things like generative AI, we haven't even talked about the tools yet. But what these organizations who are truly AI empowered are doing is they're recognizing that to truly and effectively use AI within their organization, there's a whole set of skills, soft skills, that are really vital to taking advantage of it. This includes things like critical thinking, decision making, communication, grit and determination, being able to keep working through a problem because there's not a right or a wrong answer anymore. There's just flavors, and so the more they kind of invest in their people to reinforce those AI related skills, they're finding that they're having better success when they actually do go on to the next step, which is to actually accelerate with tech and tools. So by the time that they're implementing technology and tool set, they're sure that their people are ready, willing, and able to take full advantage of that technology stack. Then, of course, they're realistic and they deploy in stages. And that deploying in stages, for those of you that have ever done a big software implementation, will know that this is probably one of the hallmarks of a truly successful initiative, is this idea of being able to bite off exactly what you can chew and to make sure that you are leveraging that technology effectively before you move on to trying to bring in anything else. And last, and probably the thing that I think is most critical when it comes to leadership and strategy, especially, is that they evolve continuously. There is our new technology platforms coming out all the time. This is a moving target. And while this is an incredible opportunity, it can also get to be a little overwhelming. So, one of the key things that they're doing is carving out a set amount of time every week to just stay at the forefront of this technology and make sure that they're able and open to embracing anything new that comes along. So we call this the upgrade framework. And these are kind of the things that these AI empowered organizations are doing. So they have a very holistic approach to AI. And I thought what I would do for you today is to just call out a couple of these that I thought would be of most value as you lead into this week. Now, the first of these is actually understand. But before we do that, if you're up for it, I thought we might play a little game. And now I've never played this online before. So we're going to have to give this a shot and hope for the best. But this is what I call the numbers game. Now, in the numbers game, if you are willing and open and desire to have a bit of fun with me right now, grab a piece of paper or a pen, or you can use your notepad on your phone, but you're going to need to write things down. And the way that the numbers game works is that if you write down the numbers as fast as I say them, I'm going to give you a list of numbers, you're going to write them down. I'm going to go really quick. So you've got to write them down in order. And there will be some prizes perhaps at the end. So keep that in mind if you're wondering whether you should participate. And at some point during this exercise, I'm going to ask you to do something else. So I might say, for example, write down a piece of fruit, and you would write down apple or banana. So that's kind of the gist of it. It's a very quick game, but it is a lot of fun and it has a very interesting twist at the end. So, are you ready? On your marks, get set. 17, 21, 34, 75, 90, 8, 4, 11. Write down a piece of furniture. I'll give you a second for that one. 29, 14, 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Now jump into the chat and write down what piece of furniture you wrote down. So go ahead and go straight to the chat and just type in whatever piece of furniture you wrote down. Okay, we've got a sofa. Perfect. Couch. Good. All right. Now, as you're all typing that in, we're going to do just a little kind of self truth here. Now, the most people will land into two different options. So, and of course, you're all working at home. So I see a lot of, there we go. There's all the answers I was expecting. So, what we you generally see here is that 97% of people, when asked this question and put on the spot, will either identify as either a chair or something that they sit on. We'll count sofa in that chair or something that you sit on, or it will be desk or table or something that you sit at. Now, if you wrote down anything that wasn't one of those two things, something that you sit at or something that you sit on, go ahead and drop that into the chat. So if you got more creative than that, and I'm kind of looking at the responses over here, we got ottoman. I'll take ottoman as a coffee table. That's very good. Yep. So the really interesting element of this is that when you think about this, there are literally thousands of pieces of furniture, and yet 98% of people come back with the same response: table or chair or something along those lines. And why is that? There's actually a scientific reason for that. And the scientific reason for that is called proximity bias. And proximity bias says that under duress or under stress, and sometimes even without the stress, we default to the things that are most apparent to us, the things right in front of us. And so for you sitting here on this, AI week webinar right now, that's probably a desk or a chair or a table that you're sitting at. And I love that we've got a TV, a bureau. I can't believe nobody has said bed yet. That's always one of my favorite ones to get in. Is somebody's like, I need to be back in bed right now. I'm so tired. So when we think about that, that proximity bias is all well and good from a games perspective, but it's actually the same thing that happens every day in business as well. Now, somebody who used to work in next generation products, I always thought it was really interesting how, even when we would go into a meeting and we would say, quick, I need everybody to be creative. We need new ideas, fresh perspectives. We would often recycle the same things that we'd always had in front of us. And that's proximity bias at work. Now, AI presents an incredible opportunity to break out of that proximity bias and to try and do something different and to think differently. And I wanted to start with understand, because we have a strategy that we use to help people break out of that box. And I think it might be beneficial for you as well. So, first of all, when we think about all of that, the key to understanding is to know what's possible so that you know what to pursue. If you aren't aware of all of the potential that AI could bring to your organization, you're going to be really hard pressed to say, yep, that's the right initiative for us, or this is where we should invest our time. So, really keep your eyes and your ears and your minds open to all of the different examples and illustrations and use cases that are going to be talked about this week on the ERP Suites AI week. So let's start off with kind of looking at what that looks like. So we know what's possible, so we know what to pursue. We're going to do that with the 5 E's. So the 5 E's is one of the ways that we kind of challenge our thinking and try to find new ways to look at how AI can provide value and impact within an organization. The first of these E's is called explore. And explore is all about finding hidden opportunities. And we do that through technology platforms, for example, computer vision. For those of you that are in manufacturing or distribution, or sometimes even if you're in a professional services space, if you're in restaurants or anything like that, that's another good option. But computer vision allows us to take images and video and to convert that video into actual data that we can consume and use. We can quantify it. So, for example, I worked with an AI startup, and that AI startup was focused solely on manufacturing and distribution for computer vision. And one of the ways that we did that was, for example, training a camera, to a production line or onto a distribution line. And from there, we would actually be able to see, like, okay, does that box have a label? Does the label have all of the elements on it? As all of the items that we packed in the box, is the packing correct? Have we missed any items? We want to count items as they get packed. So being able to use that kind of technology to see something that we couldn't have seen before. So that's one of the cool ways that we can use AI. It can also give us new data insights. Now, as JD Edwards customers, I know for a fact that you have an incredible treasure trove of data. I also know that some of it's messy. I get it. I get it. I feel you. I recognize that that is definitely a task that needs to be handled, is to get that data under control. But think about all of the incredible insights that you might be able to garner by letting AI look through that data in a protected fashion, look through that data, and to help you identify insights and opportunities. But it can also help you to drive new ideation. And if we think about that ideation, everything from, instead of you just guessing at a piece of furniture, AI might have suggested some new options for you. But I thought I would kind of demonstrate what that looks like. Now, I've tried to pack a lot into this session, so we're going to have to go quick to get through everything. But I wanted to make sure that this wasn't just me talking and was also a little bit about you doing. So I wanted to do a little bit of an AI play along, and I hope that you will do that with me. We're going to have a little bit of a play along. Now, I'm going to be using generative AI here to kind of give you some examples of things. This, of course, is just an example. And what I really want you to take away from this is this idea that we can be using all forms of AI to break out of our usual boxes. That's really the goal here. So in the AI play along, you will hear a couple different things. You'll hear this music in the background. And so when it's time for you to do the play along, you'll hear this background music. And hopefully you can hear that. Somebody give me a thumbs up in the chat or a yes in the chat if you can hear that, just so I know. And when it's time to stop the AI play along, so I'm going to give you just 60 seconds to do each of these. When it's time to stop, you'll hear this. And that's my dog Echo barking for you. So when we hear that, that'll be our little play along. Now, because I know most of you are probably either in conference rooms or you're watching this on your laptop, I don't want you jumping around. I have put this together so that you can join the play along on your phone. Now, we're going to use ChatGPT just to give us examples, but this ChatGPT, you can use it on your phone. If you don't already have ChatGPT on your phone, these are the links that you can use to download it. So if you are an iPhone user, there's your link on the left. Oh, you can't hear anything. All right, don't worry about it. We don't need that sound, so don't sweat it. So I will figure that out in the meantime. But please go ahead and download either the iPhone or the Android, depending on which version of mobile phone you've got, if you would like to play along. Oh, you could barely hear the dog bark, Kevin. Okay, well, that's good. So it's really quiet, and I will just turn up my volume and see if that helps us. Perfect. All right, or listen really closely. Um, Perfect. All right. So go ahead and grab your chat GPT. I'm going to give you kind of 60 seconds to do that. Thank you, Kylie. Oh, now we went too loud. Oh, I can't win. There you go. Hopefully you got to hear echo barking in the background just then. All right, so hopefully you managed to get ChatGPT on your phone. Now, if you're not sure whether or not you want to play along, I will tell you that everything that we're going to do in this session today is all personalized to you, not to this session, not to ERP Suites, but to you. So it's worth you investing the time. You'll get to take away these prompts. And then there's also a ton of bonus content. So all of the slides that I'm sharing today, as well as a bunch of prompt examples and some guides are all available to you for free at the end. So just keep that in mind that you'll get all of this to take away as well. All right, so assuming that you've got ChatGPT on your phone, we're just using ChatGPT because it's a really easy and a really obvious way to do some AI and to kind of get your hands in it. And also because I find that most people haven't necessarily used this on their phone and aren't necessarily using it all that well if they are using it. So I wanted to give you some good examples. Now, to test this out, what we're going to do is we're going to just do this quick sample. So let's see if this is working for everybody. So if you point your phone at the screen, you'll see a QR code there. Go ahead and point to that and go and access that QR code. Remember, it wasn't all that long ago that nobody knew how to use a QR code. So we have the pandemic to thank for that, but now everybody knows how to use a QR code. So we're going to go in and we're going to access that QR code. That's going to take you to a page on my website where you can copy a prompt. Now, I've pre-written some prompts for you just to kind of keep us moving along at a good pace. You're going to scroll down. You'll see a yellow copy prompt button. You're going to tap that button. You're going to go back over to the ChatGPT app on your phone, and then you're going to paste it. But before you hit enter, you are going to fill in the blanks at the bottom. All of my sample prompts have kind of these fill in the blanks at the bottom. So if you paste that prompt and go to the bottom of it, you will see that there's a place for you to fill in some personal details or some choices there. So go ahead and fill that in and then hit submit. Thank you for the thumbs up. I really appreciate it, everybody. And as soon as you get a response back, please feel free to go ahead and put it into the chat. And I will share a few of our responses. Now, this one is just for fun, just to make sure everybody is working effectively. And I'll give everybody just a minute to do that. Remember, as soon as you get your response back, if you are playing along, please drop it into the chat. Thank you, Kylie. I see your response in there. Anybody else got a good one that you want to share? And by good one, that's really subjective. There we go. Why did the data team manager bring a ladder to work? Because the team had to reach new levels of insight. Oh, chat, you're so funny. Why did the JDE CNC bring a ladder to work? Because they needed a little elevation. Why did the analyst break up with the spreadsheet? Because they just couldn't find the right alignment. Too many selfish behaviors. Okay, actually, I'm not going to lie, Amy. That actually is a fairly decent joke. And I do love a good pun. So I'm going to give that one a shout out. Okay, so lots of different jokes coming in. But first and foremost, what's really interesting about this is that we got 2 ladder jokes out of the ones that we saw. And I bet if I was to ask, let's just have a quick look. There's another ladder joke and another ladder joke. So why are there so many ladder jokes? Well, here's what's interesting when it comes to AI, particularly anything that's related to generative AI, and that it is a predictive engine. So that's really what this technology is doing behind the scenes. So when we give it a really short prompt and we give it a lot of the same inputs, we're all going to get the same basic output back. And frankly, there's a lot of ladder jokes online. Who knew? Now, what does this mean for you? Well, from a JD Edwards perspective and from a data perspective, this is just a great example of why it is so incredibly important to leverage your data, your systems, your settings, your context in all the AI initiatives that you undertake. Because if you're using AI in exactly the same way as everyone else, with all the exact same inputs and all the exact same parameters and prompts, well, you're going to get exactly the same thing as everybody else. And that's hardly going to give you any competitive advantage. So we definitely want to be kind of stretching ourselves a bit. All right, so let's put this into action because I wanted to give you an illustration of how AI can help you to think beyond the box a little bit. Now, in this particular play along prompt that we're going to do, and we're only doing a couple of these, so don't think that this is how we're going to spend our whole time together. But in this one, if you go ahead and scan this QR code, this is going to create personas to help you explore new opportunities. Now, you'll think perhaps that personas, which are all about the people that you do business with, you might think, well, I'm not in marketing. I don't care about personas. Don't worry about it. Whether you are a leader who is interviewing people and looking for candidates, and you want to know what are all the different possible candidates that you could interact with, whether you're in sales and you're looking for possible prospects or customers, whether you are a team leader and you want to better understand the different people within your team or the different types of people that might appear on a team, or whether you are somebody in partnerships and you're thinking, gosh, what about all these vendors that we deal with? Or who else could I ask for this support from? No matter what it is, when we're thinking about how can I see beyond the person that's right in front of me, this is a great prompt that you can use for that. So I'm going to let you go ahead and play with this. So I'm going to give you 60 seconds to scan this prompt and to fill in the blanks associated with it. And then we're going to talk through it before we move on. Remember, this is all about exploring, seeing things that you maybe didn't or couldn't see before AI. There we go. Now, don't worry if you didn't get all the way through it. We're going to talk through this for a second. Remember, the goal of this was purely to demonstrate that we can use AI to help us see things that we maybe haven't seen before. Now, in this case, one of the first things that people often say when they see the prompts that I share are, wow, that's a really long prompt. But I want you to again think back to what we were just saying about that proximity bias and also about the fact that AI, particularly generative AI, is really a an engine that is looking at the most common elements and looking to bring that together. So here we've got a much longer prompt, and in this case what we're looking at are things like, you know personalizing it. Am I interested in B2B or B2C? Who am I? What are the products or services that we provide? And I'm specifying that I want it to provide a lot of different personas. Now, for those of you that have ever had to sit down and hire somebody or find candidates or to come up with new ways to find candidates, or whether it's to find new prospects or customers, sometimes we just get stuck in a rut. And that rut kind of just leaves us going after the same things we've always gone after before. And this is a way that we can leverage AI to kind of break out of that rut and see things in a different way. Now, in this particular example, I went ahead and ran it for my fictional company called Tech Flow Distribution. And I just wanted to show you that we can kind of see some different elements coming into play, different personas, including everything from their experiences and their challenges to their primary goals. Now, This same concept of personas can also be leveraged if we wanted to think about it from a process perspective or a department perspective. But the idea that we could use AI to come up with ideas and to do that ideation so that we can get away from that proximity bias has a lot of incredible potential for us as users. Now, beyond just understanding, or exploring new opportunities, we could also be using AI to enable. And that enabling could be everything from accessing specialist skills. So, for example, let's say that you were in marketing and you thought, gosh, we really want to do more TikTok videos. But it turns out that we don't actually know what TikTok videos are, or we don't know how to make one, or we're not a specialist in that realm. And so, consequently, we just push that initiative off. So there's a lot of specialty skills that we might be able to enable our teams with through the use of AI. We could also begin leveraging things like our 24/7 bots, as well as looking at automation agents for processes. So, how could we speed things up and automate processes? Now, in addition to that, we can also elevate. When we elevate, we could be doing things like tailoring our messaging and enhancing our experiences. Now, that personalization is really valuable. So when we think about this from a reality perspective, this is a bit of a fun example. So my oldest daughter, my kids are both grown now, and my oldest daughter came home from her first day at work not too long ago, and she looked so sad and so despondent, and I was so worried about her. I was like, "What's wrong? Like you should love work because if you don't, you're never moving out." And I was like, "What's going on? What's going on? Why are you so sad?" And she said, "Oh, the people are really nice and the job's okay, but why are there so many emails?" And I thought, I don't have a good answer for that because why are there so many emails? But it wasn't just the quantity of emails that she felt overwhelmed by. She felt overwhelmed by the structure of the emails. She was like, "Oh, these emails, they just go on and they use words like embark and like assets and like, reiterating and, she just when she read these emails and they just were on for pages and she'd just be like, here's what I heard, blah 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 blah." Like she's like, "I don't get it. I don't know why we have to write all this in an email." So I thought, wouldn't it be fabulous if we could take AI and we could use AI to transform and to translate what was clearly written by a Gen Xer and put it into a Gen Z? So this is this email written in Gen Z, shared by my Gen Z.
Hey Devin, stoked to have you in the squad. Your vibe and ideas, total fire. Quick chat time, let's make some moves. Hitting up our peeps and building those connects is where it's at. And hey, always be curious. Dive into our learn zone and ask all the things. We're here for it. Don't forget to keep the deets of your game in our system. It keeps us all in sync. Super pumped for the epic stuff we're going to pull off together.
Now, I don't know about you, and I'm not 100% sure what deets are. I'm delighted that they're in the system, but what a great example of how we can be using technology to actually personalize and tailor content. Now, of course, this one was a bit of a joke because I don't expect, well, I guess it wouldn't be a bad idea for a boss to actually write their emails in Gen Z. But what it does mean is that whether you're creating training programs or whether you're creating marketing materials or whether you're writing user documentation, the opportunity to actually craft content that will connect valuably and personally with the consumer is really powerful. Now, not only do we have that, but we can also use this technology to empower people. And by empowering, one of the greatest things that we've been seeing lately is the ability to create these personalized trainings that I was referencing, as well as, pardon me, got a little parched there. Or to be able to use this for interactive bot coaching, being able to use these AI bots in order to actually coach and develop employees. And all of this technology and our use of it and being an AI empowered organization means that we are now more attractive to top talent. If you're struggling to hire people, like most organizations are right now, to hire really good, quality, capable people, then being at the forefront of AI and embracing that technology and being able to communicate that, that will really put you in an incredible position to leverage that and to actually take that forefront behavior and that leading edge approach and attract the best possible talent. Because I'll tell you what, great people don't want to work for old companies. They want to work for companies who are forward thinking and embracing new technology. So consider that as well. And finally, it allows us to expand. That fifth E is all about automating and scaling. So, whether that is creating agents that actually move things along and speed things up, or whether that's expediting service and making sure that we can get back to customers, prospects, vendors, partners, whoever in a much faster way, that's all really powerful. So, that's the 5 E's. Now, once you've kind of got some inspiration, I wanted to quickly walk you through ways that you can prioritize those things. And we call this prioritization on purpose. So, back in the days when I was selling enterprise software, we really weren't just selling products. We were selling kind of dreams of efficiency, integration. And I mean, let's be honest, basically just getting your job done right the first time. And I worked really hard as a sales professional. And like every good salesperson, I had two types of prospects. I had the big whales, the ones who could change your year. And then we had the other people. We could just call those kind of, cheap customers. Tommy tightwads is what we used to call those. And Tommy would run a business, and I put air quotes around that because, the IT department was literally him and probably his nephew and maybe an old Windows XP laptop that he swore still had some good years left in it. Now, Tommy loved to negotiate and he renegotiated and he wanted free software and he wanted free training and free service and free upgrades. And at one point, he might as well have asked if we could throw in a company car. And what did I do? I chased him. I chased him because I thought I was young, eager, and a win was a win, right? And meanwhile, I had another prospect, a big prospect. But because Tommy was making so much noise, I kind of dropped the ball on my big prospect. And this was a company that if I had landed them, probably would have made my quota for the entire year. Heck, I probably could have maybe even retired early and moved to a beach where, by the time, I sat back on my lounge chair with a margarita, the world was a perfect place. But the truth was, by the time I was so distracted by Tommy that by the time I got back to the big client, they had already picked another vendor and they weren't really that interested in talking to us anymore. And I think the whole point here is that, even what happened with Tommy at the end of the day, he ghosted me, vanished, and legend says that he's still out there somewhere looking for a software vendor who will also mow his lawn. And that day, I think sitting in my cubicle, staring at a very empty commission report, I learned something that I'll never forget. And that was that you will always miss the right opportunity if you're distracted by the wrong one. It's not the distractions that will destroy you, it is the lack of focus and prioritization. So we put together this AI focus filter to help you ask the right questions. The first one around the focus filter is that you can just imagine that this is a filter that we actually are putting every opportunity, every AI initiative that you're considering, you can put through this filter with the idea that you are just continually sifting through the details of it so that only the best, most viable, most valuable AI initiatives make it through the filter. So let's walk through these really quick. The first of these is alignment. And in alignment, what we're really talking about here is does this align with our priorities as an organization? So the key here, of course, is that you need to have some agreed priorities first. What does that mean? Well, you've got to kind of know what it is that you're planning to do and what's important so that you can make sure that you're aligned to it. Then we can move the needle. What is the impact of this? So you have to be clear about how you're going to measure success. And I know that there are some sessions this week about this, so make sure that you are tuned into those for sure. Then we get into the fit. Is AI actually even the right technology for this task? Just because you can use AI doesn't mean that you necessarily should. Sometimes traditional existing systems or processes are actually the right way to do something. You don't necessarily want to overcomplicate everything with AI if you don't need to. Then we can check the feasibility of it. Is this something that can actually be executed successfully? Really consider things like infrastructure and resourcing, both internal and external resources. So I know, for example, having worked in the partner sphere of JD Edwards, partners were one of the most valuable resources that we could ever bring in as a client when I was at JD Edwards, when I was head of JD Edwards systems at a client, as well as even as a product manager or even as a partner. The idea that there is an ecosystem of people who specialize. ERP Suites is a great example of that. How can you be leveraging that expertise and knowledge to ensure successful projects? And differentiation. So once you've kind of gotten through all those, the last question to ask is, will this give us a commercial or operational advantage over our competition? So right now, don't confuse differentiation with description. Be really ruthless about what stands out. We are seeing a lot right now about like, oh, we're using AI, or oh, we have AI built in, or oh, we're leveraging AI. But that's not really in areas that makes the biggest difference. So make sure that when you're putting this to the test, that you're being super conscious about whether or not it actually makes a difference. In your bonus content, I've actually put in a scorecard that you can use as a Google Sheet. So you can download that. It actually helps you create a calculation and a prioritization number for your various projects. So that's out in your bonus content as well that you can go and play with. Now, we were going to do kind of another, kind of AI play along here. What I'd love to encourage you to do is, just for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and put the slide up, let you take access to that prompt, and then I'm just going to walk you straight through the results of it to show you what it would do. So we've got our 5 areas for the AI focus filter. Here is the QR code to go and download another prompt if you want to give this give this a test. So this takes you to your AI focus filter business case generator. So if you're looking to create a business case, this is again another great example of how you can use AI, particularly like a ChatGPT or a Claude or a Gemini or a Copilot. You can use any of those to help you draft a document that you can then edit, modify, and play with. And that gives you a great starting point. So we're just going to pass right on through this, and I'm going to show you kind of what the results look like. So here, when we look at the AI business case, this is creating an assessment along each of those different criteria about, based on your filling in the blank, it's going to create criteria over whether or not, what's the impact analysis, what's the evaluation for fit and feasibility, is this going to provide true competitive differentiation? And it also provides some deep dive questions, risk assessment, and next steps. So that's all what will be generated by that particular prompt. And just for fun, because I always like to give some quick and easy tips as well, just for fun, if you ever get anything drafted or written by AI, don't forget that you can always tweak it and modify it by using kind of these adjustment things. You can say, make it longer, shorter, tailor it for a particular audience if you're presenting to a CEO or if you're presenting to a line manager. You can say, be more friendly. One of my favorites is to be more sarcastic. It's terrible at being sarcastic, but it is really funny. You could even have it write your business plan or your business proposal in Shakespearean or as a country Western song. And wouldn't that be amazing? So just a few quick tips. But the big reminder is that AI can make mistakes. So while we use this technology, we have to be the bookends to that technology. We guide it in the front, we evaluate it and manipulate it in the back to make sure that it is accurate and truly represents our organization and what we're trying to accomplish. Because even when you ask AI to do something and it looks really good, it can still be wrong. So give everybody a second to see it. So unless you are a 6-fingered artist, this is not a picture of your hand drawing anything. So just remember that while AI can often turn out things that look amazing, you are the ultimate responsibility for making sure that this technology is true and accurate and ethical and reliable. So make sure that you are leading the charge in that at all times. And make sure that you're thinking about AI holistically. This is not something that you want to just piecemeal or pull out of the air or just randomly pick a project. The most AI empowered organizations, the organizations who are truly embracing this technology, they're doing it because they have a holistic view. That's how they're successful. They're thinking not only about the technology itself, but about all of the pieces and parts that go into leveraging technology effectively and being good consumers of that technology and leading that technology implementation. Because at the end of the day, AI leadership starts at the top. And when you champion change, your team will follow you. And that's something to be super excited about because the last thing that you would want to be, I hope, is a Blockbuster. I'm sure, especially because you're here attending AI Week, I am sure that your ultimate goal is to actually not just be a consumer of this technology, but to be a leader and a best, in a top performing, amazing blockbuster replacement that you would take over the world and become the Netflix for your industry and change the world so that you can become a true number one performer. And that is what I hope for you. I've put a QR code up here that will take you to bonus content. Please feel free to answer a few questions. You can put as much or as little as you'd like. And once you've done that, you'll get access immediately to there's free prompts, guides, tools, more. All the slides are out there so you can help yourself to all of that content. I am just so delighted and excited to have gotten to hang out with my JDE people today. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat and we'll field them. Manuel, are you still there? And I think while we're waiting, I know there's a bit of a lag here and we'll see who comes in with questions. But I think probably, some of the most common questions that certainly I hear
Mhm.
is, how do we deal with kind of the reluctance that comes with AI? Right. So, I would imagine, and certainly when I talk to leaders, especially, we're hearing a lot from organizations about, I've got people in my organization that are really reluctant about AI, or they're afraid of what it means for their jobs. They're afraid of what it means for their roles and for their processes that they manage and the teams that they're responsible for. So, what can we do about that? And I think as we look at that, one of the most valuable things, if you're in that place and you are thinking about your people and how to support them, or if you're thinking about even yourself and what maybe you're feeling a little overwhelmed with AI, the best piece of advice that I can give you is to be educated. So, get out there and see what's going on, play around with AI, get comfortable with the technology as it exists, and then look to expand from there. So, for example, if you haven't, like, if this was your first time using ChatGPT, for example, or if you just have kind of dabbled with it, but not well, like, great, go out and use it at home, like, use it, I use ChatGPT or Claude all the time for various things. I mean, I've recently had it take a picture of my pantry. I say pantry, what I mean is my drinks cabinet. I took a picture of my drinks cabinet and said, I have all of these ingredients. What cocktail could I make tonight? Or I can use it to, take a picture of something and ask it to translate something. I was speaking at an event in Norway and the entire day was in Norwegian except for my session, because clearly I don't speak Norwegian. And I felt like I should have some idea of what was happening. And I was taking pictures of the slides and having ChatGPT translate those slides for me in real time so that I had some idea of what was happening around me. So, there's lots of different ways that you can play with AI to keep busy and to kind of get comfortable with it and get familiar with the experience of interacting with AI. I think that's great. So that's probably one of the ones I get asked most.
That's great. No, that's good insight. Let's see if there are any other questions. I don't
Perfect.
Sounds
Well,
great.
drop me a note if I can ever be of help. And thank you so much for having me, Manuel, Scott, everybody in the JDE world. Hello, it's so lovely to be here. All the best,
Thank you so
everyone.
much, Julie. Thank you so much. Great, great session. Really, loved it. Thank you very much.